perspective to see through your eyes. My hope burned to ashes, but you're calling it back to life. I'll stand for your heart, clear air, steady hands. I'll live with you, wide open. And I'm so done with chasing the small dreams, and I'm not bringing back all the dead things, and I'm not going back to the old me. I'm choosing you, and I'm so done with chasing the small dreams, and I'm not bringing back all the dead things, and I'm not going back to the old me. I'm choosing you, and I'm not going back. No, I'm not going back. I'm choosing you. This moment, not just this moment. Not just this moment, but for the rest of my life. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. There is no question, I've made up my mind. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. Not just this moment, but for the rest of my life. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. There is no question, I've made up my mind. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. Not just this moment, but this moment. Heart and soul, I'm choosing you. There is no question, I've made up my mind. Heart and soul, and I'm so done with chasing the small dreams. I'm not bringing back all the dead things. I'm not going back to the old me. I'm choosing you, and I'm not going back. I'm choosing you, and I'm not going back. I'm choosing you, and I'm not going back. The old me. I'm choosing you. Not just this moment, for the rest of my heart and soul, and I'm choosing you. And I have no question, I made up my mind. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing you. There is no question. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still the only one. You're the only one. You're the only one. And I feel my heart beating out of my chest. I wanna stay forever like this. May the flame of my heart always be lit. I wanna burn forever like this. And I feel my heart beating out of my chest. I wanna stay forever like this. May the flame of my heart always be lit. I wanna burn forever like this. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. Oh, you're still my first love. You're still my only one. You're still my first love. You're still my only one. And I feel my heart beating out of my chest. I wanna stay forever like this. May the flame of my heart always be lit. I wanna burn forever like this. Oh, forever like this. Forever like this. In your presence, I wanna stay forever. I wanna stay forever like this.
What is up, everyone? I want to take a moment and welcome you to church. Welcome to Mosaic. We are so glad that you joined us here today. My name is Joe, and this right here is my incredible wife.
And I'm Beck, and we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this August. We made it, babe.
Hopefully, we're still going. We gotta
still
keep
going.
going, but we
We're still going.
did it.
We're so excited that you're joining us today, and we have so many opportunities for you to connect. And one of them is for my girls. So all my girls out there, we are launching girl groups this week, and they're gonna be going for 6 weeks. We have groups going around the world, so wherever you are in the world, whatever city, whatever age, we have a group for you. So make sure you go to mosaic.org/girls to sign up and find a group for you.
It's so cool. And for everybody else out there, we have also an incredible opportunity for you. It is called Mosaic Houses. What the Mosaic House is there's people all around the world who have opened up their home. They've hosted friends, families, neighbors, and they have a time where they watch church together, and they just really do life in community with one another. And so if you're here and you're like, I would love to host a Mosaic House, I would love to be a part of this movement, and you can go to mosaic.org/houses, and you can sign up and you get all the information that you need to begin to host. And when we think about amazing opportunities to connect here at Mosaic, like houses and girls, see, this is available because of incredible women and men around the world who give generously and sacrificially. And so we first want to pause and just say thank you. Thank you to the countless incredible people who give because they know that it can have an impact on others. And when I think about why we give as a family, I'm reminded of recently, we started Indian T-ball, and we got an email from the organization saying, hey, we need some more coaches. And if I can be honest, I ignored the email. I didn't want to coach. I just wanted my son to play. I wanted to go and cheer him on and use all the excuses. I'm too busy, too much going on. But the moment I read those words and I said, we need coaches, I realized that that's what we do, those of us who have given our life to Jesus, is that when a need is presented, that's when we step up.
That's good.
And so I said yes, and I can't tell you how much joy I've gotten the last 2 weeks, just being a coach on his team and meeting these kids and their families, and it has been the joy of my life. And I know this is what happens every single time we give together. See, when we give generously, when we give sacrificially, what we're doing is we're fulfilling the need that somebody else has. See, we are bringing hope to someone's life that did not have it before. We're bringing joy to someone's life that maybe they only knew despair. See, we're able to build schools in Malawi, and we're able to provide for mothers on Mother's Day because we have people that say there's a need and we are going to fill it. And so this is an opportunity right now for us as the church, that there are so many needs, and the way that we let people know that God sees them is we give generously and we give sacrificially. And so wherever you are right now, we want to encourage you, we want to invite you to join with us, to be generous with your resources, because there are people's names behind that gift.
And you can give by going to mosaic.org/give or give through the Mosaic app. Now today we have a great honor and privilege of hearing from our lead pastor, Erwin Raphael McManus. I know it's going to be an incredible talk, so get ready for the talk of your life.
Hello everyone, welcome to Mosaic. If you're new, I'm Erwin McManus, and I am coming to you from the amazing and beautiful Mexico City. I'm here with Mosaic Mexico and Pastor Emerson Nawatney, y estamos encantados que estamos aquí con esta expresión de Mosaic. La gente aquí son increíble y sabemos que Dios está haciendo algo tremendo aquí. And we're so honored to be here, and I'm excited to unwrap some scriptures, but today I'm going to talk about the elusive nature of freedom. I've been thinking a lot about the elusive nature of freedom. I mean, we live at a time in history where we're probably unquestionably the most free people that human history has ever known. I mean, we live in a nation, in a state, in a city, in a community that's free. We have freedom of speech and the freedom of choice and the freedom to choose our careers and to choose our husbands and wives, to choose our futures. And even with all the other constraints that are around us and those things that make us feel more limited in our choices, I think most of us would agree that we're essentially free. And yet, even in this freedom, I think most of us have this overwhelming sense that we're not free. And then when you add faith, when you add a relationship with God and you hear all the language of do's and don'ts, it seems almost as if that freedom becomes more difficult to experience, more difficult to realize. And there's this one particular verse, this one particular psalm that David writes that has always just struck me in regards to God's commands and to the experience of freedom. It's in Psalm 119, verse 32. David says this, "I run in the path of your commands, for you have set my heart free." Now that statement for me stands out because it brings together two concepts in the same phrase that seem to almost be mutually exclusive: commands and freedom. I can understand that there are commands, that there are things that you have to do or are required to do or obligated to do. And then I can understand that you are free, that you have freedom, that you have choice, that you can run wild. But the idea of having commands and having freedom and having them somehow in this unique interplay where they complement each other, that doesn't make any sense to me. And yet David says, "I run in the path of your commands, for you have set my heart free." So I started right away just trying to remember my own adversarial relationship to commands. I mean, when you think about it, as human beings, we don't really have a positive relationship with commands. If you can go back into your latent memory as a child, you probably did not have great experiences with commands. I mean, think about how we relate to commands. We grow up as children, we basically are completely not free. Now, we have parents and they tell us what to do, and it depends on the nature of your family system, but some things never change. Parents always command you to do things that you do not want to do. That's why it's called a command. They never command you to do things you want to do. I just don't remember any commands from my mom or stepdad saying, go play, or eat more dessert, or just run wild, or paint on the walls. I can't remember a single command they ever gave me that was for me just an affirmation of my own desires and what brought me joy and delight in life. All the commands were stealing from me the freedom I wanted. They were stealing from me the joy I wanted. They're stealing from me the pleasure of life. They would command me, don't cross the street, because I knew freedom was on the other side of the street. Or they would command me, don't eat another cookie. And I knew that one more cookie would make me so much happier. They would command me to go to bed at some ridiculous hour, whether it was 8 or 9 or 10 or 11. It didn't matter how much it changed, because they kept adding half an hour to give me a little bit more freedom, but it never felt like it was enough. It was always limiting me. Why would they force me to go to sleep if I want to stay up and live and enjoy life and feel fully alive? Why did it matter that I was exhausted the next morning, didn't have the energy to go to school? And so if you think about your adversarial relationship to commands, it starts with your parents. They're just holding you back. They're stealing your joy. They're stealing your freedom. They seem to be compulsively in need to tell you what to do and to command your life. And it seems to me that command and control were really connected. And then you go to school. I really cannot remember a single teacher that commanded me to do things I wanted to do. They didn't command me to stay outside and play. They didn't command me to enjoy recess more. They didn't command me to hang around lunch. They would always command me to not talk to the people around me. They command me to pay attention or command me to sit up straight. And even that cafeteria lunch lady, now I see some of you don't remember, but in the old school days, we would go to school, we'd have cafeteria lunch, and we had that lady who was the supervisor of our eating, and I hated milk, white milk. I could do chocolate milk, but I just couldn't tolerate milk. And every single day, that lady, and milk was about 5 cents, she would come and watch me to see if I would drink my milk, and I would not drink my milk. I would give my milk to my brother because he loved milk, or to someone else because I'm very generous. And this lady took it on herself to make sure that I would drink my own milk. And she would tell me, I'm going to tell your mother if you don't drink your milk. I'm going to stand here and watch you drink your milk. And every single time I didn't drink my milk, she would tell my mom, what is it about people that have this need to command and control? And so really, all of my life, and I have a suspicion that all of your life, you've had a fairly negative relationship to commands. First, it's your parents commanding you, then it's your teachers commanding you to do homework. I mean, what good is homework? What good is having to pay attention in school? What good is having to show up on time to class? And then you get a job. And now you have a boss, and he's commanding you. Now, one of the first jobs I had was working in a restaurant. I worked in a pizza restaurant, and I worked in a steak restaurant. I worked in a burger joint. And you'd have some guy telling you what to do. I mean, he's wearing a paper hat, and now he's commanding me, telling me how to live my life. And all of those life experiences, oh, by the way, I didn't even bring in dating. And I know that you date because you're in love, but very quickly you discover that you've just given someone permission to command you and to have expectations of your life. And that also expands to this relationship called marriage. But then it involves God. Now, even if you never believed in God or didn't grow up believing in God, didn't have a religious background, you probably already had an adversarial relationship to commands. And then you hear about God and all of God's expectations and all of God's do's and don'ts and don'ts and don'ts. And then you hear that he has commands, at least 10 of them, where he's obligating you to live your life a certain way. And how in the world could those commands have any relationship to your freedom? I mean, just like your parents were unreasonable telling you not to eat the rocks. Oh, by the way, we just celebrated Rooney Roy's 1-year birthday, and she's so beautiful. And we love her mom and dad, Eric and Tass, and we're there celebrating this birthday party, and they gave her this beautiful cake. It was like this multicolored cake, and when she was sitting there, I'd never seen anybody do this. You know, usually they try to keep their kid from putting their hands in the cake or contaminating the whole cake because they want to share it with everyone. It was a cake just for Rooney. But she didn't seem to want to eat it. She wanted to wear it. She wanted to sculpt with it. She wanted to design with it. She just kept putting her hands in it and messing with it. And I noticed that she didn't put any of it in her mouth. But a little earlier, she was in the backyard and she saw these rocks on the ground and she was putting the rocks in her mouth. Now I thought, how strange that Rooney couldn't keep from eating the rocks, but didn't really feel that inspired to eat the cake. And of course, you know how mom and dad are. Don't put that rock in your mouth. Rooney, no. There they are again with this adversarial relationship to commands. Because we don't understand that though commands feel like they're limiting us, those commands are actually there to help us experience freedom at its fullest level. I mean, let's look at God's commands. How reasonable can God be? Just look at the top 10 and you realize, wow, God is really trying to suffocate us and steal from us our freedom. I mean, what is God thinking when he says, don't steal from each other, or don't lie to each other, or especially this one, don't kill each other? I mean, why would God want to oppress us and hold us back and keep us from our freedom? It seems to me that God understands how to experience freedom far better than we do. That when we're not thinking through things properly, we will make choices in our freedom that will cost us our freedom. And what God is desperately trying to do is help us to trust him that his path is the path to freedom. So he says in Psalm 119:32, I run in the path of your command. Now, I think this dynamic action declaration is so important. He's not saying I walk in the path of your commands. He's not saying I'm stumbling in the path of your commands, or I'm getting dragged in the path of your commands. And by the way, this is where you can tell whether your relationship with God is healthy or not. See, if you are moving in God's direction, kicking and screaming, you are in an unhealthy space with God. If you're doing what God says, well, because you're afraid of his judgment or punishment, you don't want God to get angry with you, then you're not in a healthy space. You see, when you're being forced to move in God's direction, when you're being forced to move in God's path, you don't understand who God is, and you certainly don't understand who you are. Because when you think that God's path actually steals from you your future, steals from you your freedom, you don't understand what life is really all about. It says, I run in the path of your commands. You're saying, God, I finally understand who you are. It finally makes sense to me. I finally get it. You're not commanding me because you're trying to stop me from being free. You're not commanding me because you're trying to limit my freedom. You're not commanding me because you're trying to withhold from me what is best in life. You're commanding me because you understand the direction where freedom is actually experienced most fully. The optimal space to be in when you know that you are connecting to God at the deepest level, when you're living in intimacy with Jesus, you are running in the path of God's command. You are not apprehensive. You're not afraid of God's direction. You're not feeling like you're giving something up or holding onto something that God doesn't want for your life. You are running in direction of God's intention for your life. I run in the path of your commands. Why? Because you have set my heart free. Now, there seems to be this beautiful interplay here between running in God's commands and being set free. Because when your heart is free, you can now see things clearly. And what David is saying, God, you've set my heart free. And now, if God sets your heart free right now with the desires that you have inside or the dreams you have in your heart, wouldn't it be probably a future full of regret? Because see, so oftentimes we want God to give us what we want right now. We want God to give us the dreams we have right now. We want God to give us the desires we have right now without allowing God to shape our dreams and shape our desires and shape our heart. And what David is actually telling us is that as we trust God and his commands, as we trust what God is speaking into our lives, it shapes our hearts. It shapes our desires. It shapes our dreams. And in that, God sets our hearts free. I think so oftentimes the prison that we live inside is not created by the world around us, but by the world within us. We are trapped by our desires. We are trapped by the things we want. We're trapped by the things we believe will give us meaning. We're trapped by the things we think will give us significance. We're trapped by wanting more and more. We're trapped by wanting what other people say matters in life. And what David has actually discovered is that you cannot live a life of freedom until your heart has actually been set free. This is where it starts. It starts with your heart being set free. It starts with your heart being set free from dreams that aren't yours to live or desires that aren't yours to have. I think the prison that most of us live in is trying desperately to live a life we were not created to live. And that's why envy can actually become so destructive, because when you see someone else's life and want their life, or you see someone else's dreams and you want their dreams, that's the elusive nature of fame, that we see someone and they become not simply aspirational for us. They don't simply cause us to long for our greatest life, but they actually become for us a source of envy where we want their life. We want their things. We want their success. We want their story. And what God wants to do first is he wants to set you free from all the expectations of others. He wants to set you free from what other people told you your life should be like. He wants to set you free from even your parents' expectations on your life. He wants to set you free from everything else that's telling you who you should be, how you should live, and what kind of future you should create. He wants to set your heart free so that you can be fully and freely you. Let me tell you, that's the greatest freedom I've ever come to know. It's that freedom where you're no longer controlled by the criticism of other people. You're no longer controlled by even the praise of other people. You're not controlled by the expectations or the standards of other people, but you now live your life based on this incredible space of freedom where it doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people say. What matters is that your life is bringing pleasure to God. And once you are in such alignment with Jesus and you realize, oh, the only person whose approval I need in my life is Jesus. And when you come to that place, your heart becomes fully free. And when you get to that place, you're able to run in the path of his commands, because you know that when you trust God's calling on your life, when you trust God's intention for your life, when you trust that intimacy with God and you allow his voice to be your singular source of affirmation and significance, it sets you free from the gravitational pull of everyone else around you. When you set your heart toward him, it gives you the compass to move always in that due north of the calling and intention that God has for you. You know, one other translation of Psalm 119:32, when it says, I run in the path of your commands, for you have set my heart free, actually can be translated like this: I run in the path of your commands, for you have broadened my understanding. It's an interesting slice on that translation. One says you have set my heart free, but the other one says you have broadened my understanding. And if you just take that nuance, what he's actually telling us is, I can run in the path of your commands, God. I can move fast. I can move without hesitation. I can move without apprehension. I can move with courage and faith because I finally see things from your perspective. It says, you have broadened my understanding. See, I think a lot of times what happens, the reason we lose our freedom is we just don't understand what God is doing in our life. We just don't understand what's going on. And so we keep trying to fix what God is doing rather than trust God, to follow him with the clarity that his calling on our life is all we need. And I can look back on my life and he says, God, I can run the path of your commands because you've broadened my understanding. I can look back at times when I thought, God, what are you doing? God, what are you thinking? God, do you know what's going on? God, do you understand what I'm going through? And so oftentimes the reason we lose our freedom is that we lose our confidence that God is actually for us. We lose our confidence that God is good and that everything he intends for us is actually good. And David is saying, God, you have set my heart free. So I'm free from all those things that would pull me off course. And God, you've broadened my understanding. And so now I can see with the clarity that I need to know what you're doing in this crazy mess of life all around me. And I look back at our adversarial relationship to commands, and if we could just understand why God is doing what he's doing, why God gives us those boundaries that seem to limit us, but actually they liberate us. You know, the other day, Kim and I were taking a walk, and we always walk from our house and we cross 3rd Street, which is a pretty busy street, and we have Thatcher, and anybody who knows our dog Thatcher is like 9 years old, and she's almost more of a carpet than she is a dog. She almost never moves and she doesn't really want to walk, so we have to take her on walks, but she just sort of moves at a snail's pace. But whenever she wants to, she can move quicker, but even that's not that fast. And we had been walking, we crossed 3rd Street and we were on our way back, and it was already dark and at night, and Kim had that day an incredibly terrifying experience where she was meeting a friend for lunch up in the Pasadena area, and she went around to get something from her car. When she stepped forward, a bus went by and almost hit her, and she said the bus was within inches of her face, and she just stood there paralyzed as the bus went by, and she had this overwhelming awareness that she could have died in that moment, and she was carrying that emotional weight all day long. And now we're walking Thatcher, and she's sharing this story with me, and I'm realizing how terrifying that moment was for her. And I just kept wondering, even as we were walking, like, how did she know to stop right there? And you just wonder in those moments if there isn't that moment where God is just there and protecting her and just keeping her an inch from the step that would ruin everything, that would destroy everything. I wonder how many times in our lives we've been one step from catastrophe, one step from disaster, one step from the end of everything. And God has protected us, but we didn't see it. We may have even experienced it as a command or a boundary or a limitation, but God understood that was the line from which our freedom would be lost. And on that same day where she had that horrific experience, we're coming back across 3rd Street. There are no cars coming from a pretty significant distance. And as we're crossing the street, we notice this car is coming, and he must be going at least 60 miles an hour, and he's coming at a much faster pace than all the other cars. And then Kim said, we have to hurry. And I tried to pull Thatcher, and Kim always puts Thatcher's collar on loose so it doesn't feel uncomfortable with Thatcher. And I keep telling her that's not a good idea. You need to have it tight enough where you can actually control her when you need to. And Thatcher stopped in the middle of the street. I pulled the collar went flying off her head, and she just stopped as this car is coming at least 60 miles an hour, and he was not going to stop. And I see this car coming, I see Thatcher stop, and I have to run in the middle of the street between Thatcher and the car and yell at the car and put my arms up and say, stop! And this car still keeps coming and finally just swerves off and stops just to the side of us. And in that moment, I thought about how many times I've experienced God yelling, stop. And if I'm not in the right relationship with God, I think God is trying to be controlling, commanding, judgmental, maybe even condemning. I think God is trying to limit my freedom and steal from me my future. And I don't realize that God is trying to stop me from making the worst decision of my life. And I wonder how many times God had to stand, in a sense, right in front of us and just tell us, stop. And when our hearts are postured toward God with trust, we understand that whenever God says no, it's not because God is trying to keep something from us, but he's trying to keep us from something that would steal from us our future, our freedom, our joy, our hope, our love, our life. Kim and I have been married, almost 40 years, really. We're just pressing up to that 4th decade, and I can tell you that the reason our love has survived is that we both have said yes to each other, which means we've said no to many other things. And that for love to flourish, there have to be boundaries where you say no to yourself about other choices, other actions, other directions. It's the same way with God. It's the same way, by the way, with life. You know why we have an elusive relationship to freedom? It's because we think that freedom is the freedom to choose. But just because you have the freedom to choose does not mean that your choices will bring you freedom. In fact, most of us, the freedom that we've lost because of the choices we've made. And my question today would be this: has freedom remained elusive to you, even in your relationship with Jesus? If freedom is still elusive to you, if you still feel as if you're trapped, you still feel like you're being limited, if you feel as if you're imprisoned, it's not because God is not the God of freedom. It's because you have been resisting the path that God has been calling you to. Maybe you've been going forward, kicking and screaming. Maybe you only step forward with God when you feel there's no option. You know, the real proof of spiritual maturity, again, is not that you involve God in your consequences, but that you involve God in your choices. And when we want to experience freedom at its fullest level, we understand that whatever God calls us to, whatever God invites us into, whatever God commands you, it is the path to your freedom. And that's why Jesus came 2,000 years ago. Why God took on flesh and blood 2,000 years ago. Why God walked among us. And his name was Jesus. Why he was crucified on a cross. Why he rose from the dead. So that we could choose our freedom. So that we could choose our forgiveness. So that we could choose God. And when we choose him, we step into our freedom and our future. Let me tell you, if you're hesitant to trust Jesus with your life, if you're hesitant to cross the line of faith and give your life completely to Jesus, if you're apprehensive to trust God with your future, you just don't know who God is, and you don't understand how freedom comes. Jesus died so that you and I could be forgiven and free. And once you understand that following Jesus is the path to freedom, you won't crawl in that direction. You won't be dragged in that direction. You're not going to follow Jesus kicking and screaming. When you finally understand that Jesus is the path to freedom, you will run in the path of his commands because he has set your heart free. And maybe you're listening right now and you're ready for Jesus to set your heart free. You're tired of living in this self-created prison of your choices. I want to invite you right now to cross the line of faith, to put your trust in Jesus, to follow him into your future. And if you're ready to do that, I want to lead you in a simple prayer. It's not everything you and God need to talk about, but it's where it begins. Right now, if you're ready to trust Jesus with your life, would you just pray this prayer with me right now? Jesus, I give you my life. Right now, just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. Just tell him, Jesus, I give you my life. If you just prayed that prayer with me right now, you've just stepped into your future. You've just stepped into your freedom. Because when you put your trust in Jesus, you've stepped into his forgiveness, and new life begins.
Pastor Erwin, thank you so much for that message today. That was special. That was exactly what we needed to hear. And we're so thankful that we have you as such a gift to our community. Thank you, sir. And I know there's so many of you right now who you made a decision to follow Jesus for the first time. You crossed over the line of faith, and we want to help you in this new journey. So if that was you and you made that decision, I want you to grab your phone and I want you to text the word decided to 71711. And what's going to happen is we're going to have a team that's going to follow up with you. We're going to have people that are going to give you tools and resources as you begin this new journey of faith. So right now, text decided to 71711.
We love you, Mosaic. Have the best week, and we'll see you next time.
I call on you. You promise to show up each time that I do. So proof that it's true. I look at you, your beauty and kindness I cannot refuse. No, I can't refuse. I can't refuse. Walking with you through all of the years, I thought I was alone, but I was so wrong. Coming to you, you promise to be there each step that I take. So show me the way, show me the way. Show me the way. Dreaming with you, I don't want a future that you wouldn't choose. So watch what I'll do. I'll stand with you. I will be fearless and I will be true. We stand with promise to show up each time that I do, so proof that it's true. I look at you, your beauty and kindness I cannot refuse. No, I can't refuse.